apology. I actually thought, as far as all those apologies go, I was surprised that there were some sort of like cookie cutter phrases in there. It seemed like he was coached a little bit, but I thought it was really nice and refreshing to hear someone say like, "Listen, I don't need to get into right, wrong, good, bad. It looks awful. The joke I made was awful, even though I made it a couple of years ago. Like, I don't stand by it, and I agree. Like, I hear you. Like."
Right.
Like no matter what, if I have to get up and say this, then I did something wrong. I mean, but I like that he said it. I like that he said like we all saw the video. No one is like, what's the problem here? Like we all get that something wrong was done, and I want to acknowledge that.
Sure.
I guess
my initial reaction was similar.
Yeah.
It's like he's acknowledging how bad this looks, but then he goes one step further
to say it was
as to ascribe guilt and shame. And where he made his big mistake was in context or out of context, it's wrong. Not that it looks bad, and that can't be true.
So I think what he should have done, and what I expected him as a fan for Joe Rogan to have done, is to go.
Wait, you're a fan of Joe Rogan now? Quick, we have to throw this in.
Let me say this first. Let me say this because we're gonna get off track. What I expected him to do is I wish he would have done, instead of saying I was wrong, I wish he would have went, I spoke to my friend Dave Chappelle, and he explained it to me this way, blah, 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 blah. And that's why I think I'm wrong right now. I think that would have gone a long way with me to be like, first of all, if it's a teachable moment, teach me why you think it's wrong. Don't just say it's wrong, explain why it's wrong. And then maybe even do like a 20-minute episode with a good friend of his that, where he has a discussion and
a good friend of his who happens to be.
No, he doesn't have to be black.
Oh.
He doesn't have to be black, but in the classic Joe Rogan way, like, talk about it, explain how you got there, because then I think a lot of the conversation around your apology wouldn't be around, well, is it right or wrong to say the N-word? What is it? It would be more about like learning together. Anyway, so then back to last week. What do you want to say?
That you're taking heat. It's so funny. You're taking these like Joe Rogan super fans. I'm one of them, and so are you.
Yeah.
And yet people are look, we're posting reels and short clips, which by definition are out of context of the full episode. I encourage all of you out there who are commenting on the Buckle Up videos. We appreciate the engagement. It's good for the algorithm. No, we appreciate everybody engaging. But watch the entire conversation, because what Michael is channeling is an argument that's worth hearing so that you can make your thoughts about a matter stronger and more refined.
I was explaining what a friend of mine had said. I was sort of using
and I
his
thought
voice.
I made that clear in the very beginning of one of the clips. I wrote, so he said, and I thought, oh, that's a good point. Obviously, you weren't. But anyway, I also made me look really good for the fans.
No, you looked great. It was interesting to see how much.
But I couldn't help it. These were both genuine positions we were willing to express. Mine happens to be the one I hold.
Yeah.
You were one that you were considering because you're more open-minded than me. Fair enough.
So this bleeds perfectly into what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
How much love there is out there for Joe Rogan. You put out a clip of you defending Joe Rogan against some asshole like me who's talking shit about him, and people came out probably more engaged.
Pothead, hippie, fool, the bearded fool. That should be a new handle for you, the bearded fool.
The goof. Someone said that guy's a goof. I was like,
ouch.
This is the kind of trolling we need in this country.
Yes.
But right. So you came out defending Joe Rogan. A lot of people have so much love for him that they're like, I need to comment.
Right.
Like, yeah, fuck yeah, that guy sucks. That guy's a goof. So that bleeds into this whole controversy between all the mainstream media corporations and whoever's behind trying to get Joe Rogan sort of like taken down. It seems like there's a group.
It is obvious that this is a political hit job and not some sort of virtuous campaign to stop using the N-word casually.
So there's a hit job against Joe Rogan. There's also a hit job against Substack generally. And the reason obviously is...
What's the link to Substack?
Oh, well, so there's a whole Substack controversy of their hosting anti-vax writers. And I think they've made something like a little over $2 million in subscription fees, and their fee for the subscriptions on these anti-vax writers. And people are like, Substack should be shut down. They shouldn't be hosting these anti-vax writers. They should be censoring them, etc. It's kind of...
So the cancel culture of what we're talking about is also coming for Substack.
Right. Well, they're coming for platforms now. Like if you're hosting somebody who's against my policy, they should be censored.
Yeah.
And so while I was watching the reaction to all this, the reaction to Joe Rogan, the reaction to Substack, what I was realizing is who's coming out in defense of Joe Rogan and Substack? The Substack writers, the people who are making money on it, the people who make money through Joe Rogan, not make money, the people, you're gonna like what I'm saying. The people who are hosted by Joe Rogan and whose careers have been helped by Joe Rogan, people with huge fan bases who desperately and like will desperately defend them to the bitter end. So basically what you have are these sort of like nameless political entities trying to take down these beloved figures and these beloved platforms, and what you're getting back from that are 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 people with really big fan bases then fighting against those political entities,
It's
right?
galvanizing the
It's
support for them.
galvanizing them. And who do you think is going to win in the end? Is it going to be these nameless corporations who no one really loves, or is it going to be
And Twitter accounts amplifying.
yeah, or is it going to be these personalities with huge loyal fan bases? So in the end, I'm actually pretty optimistic. It's going to be Joe Rogan. It's going to be Crystal Taggar. It's going to be Substack and Spotify that win because they're the ones who actually have fans who really love them.
So here's my question to you. Do you think this is really about love for Joe Rogan, or in a cheesy way, what people are defending when they're trying to defend Joe Rogan? It's masked. I wouldn't say masked. That's the wrong word. It comes in the form of defense of Joe Rogan, but I think it's a defense of truth. Not that Joe Rogan is infallible, but the idea or the pursuit
Yeah.
of what he's attempting to do. And if it's bigger than him in the sense that when you watch this video a couple of times, hearing that word over and over again is ugly and disgusting. You don't like hearing that word. But Sam Harris, I listened to his take on this whole thing, and he's been critical of Joe Rogan when it came to COVID misinformation and when it came to the types of guests he had on. But he is a friend of Joe Rogan's. He said he's a friend, but I don't think he said it in the sense of this clouds my judgment or my bias. He gave an analysis of basically, if you can't understand the difference between the utterance of a word in its proper context by somebody talking about the word versus somebody using it as a pejorative racial slur, if you can't understand the difference, if this word has magical qualities to you like Voldemort in Harry Potter, it mustn't be said, he who shall not be named. Once this word is uttered, automatic racism.
Yeah.
If you can't tell the difference, you're not morally prepared to deal with the real problems that we face today. Social problems, political problems in the African community that they're actually facing. I would imagine if we can't actually tell the difference, this magical quality we bestow upon this word, and I heard this from two black intellectuals as well, Glenn Laurie, and I'm blanking on the other name, but they were like, this is ridiculous. There's a fundamental difference between somebody talking about a word and referring to it, whether you're reading Huckleberry Finn or you're just quoting a comedian who uses the word, then using it at somebody with the intention to hurt them and use it as a pejorative. We're big enough. Let the adults in the room prevail. Let the rational minds prevail. We know the difference. And 90-something%, the majority of that video that was cut up is Joe Rogan casually using the word, but referring to it in talking about it. And we all know it. You can see it. And if you look at Joe Rogan's diverse array of friends and relationships and connections over the years, it is so obvious it's anti-truth to call him a racist. It just is. It's such a smear tactic that has no base in actual reality. And I think people really do understand it, not just the fans, but there is this idea, and we were talking to a close friend about it, a mutual close friend about it, or really I was, and you were witnessing the conversation. I won't say who. In a thread.
Yeah.
That any utterance of this word is just wrong.
Yeah.
Qua wrong in and of itself. I don't see how that can be the case. So I'm saying you're telling me that when a Klan member uses it to insult somebody in the 1950s, a person of color, or today, that has the same moral weight and worth the same moral condemnation as somebody referring to the word in an educational context or an artistic context when Quentin Tarantino uses it in Django. And she goes, that's different. This friend of ours says, it's different. It was a movie about slavery. I'm like, well, so you're saying that it is subjective. There is context. And also I'm not defending the casual use of the word per se, even though we can all understand it. I'm also defending the idea that like sometimes in the podcast realm, people say fucked up shit and they're like, oh wait, no. But the person who's saying it, the subject who's saying it matters. So Joe Rogan's actions and his intentions matter when it comes to the use of spoken words.
So to your first point, I don't think this is about something bigger. I think, especially just based on the comments we got in our videos, I think Joe Rogan I think it's about people's love for these renegade independent figures
But go deeper than that. Why is there love for them? That's what I'm saying. Whether they're conscious of it or not, they're not going out saying, I'm defending Joe because I love Joe unconditionally. They love what Joe has done.
True. Yeah, fine. So
that's my point.
In that sense, it's sort of a pursuit of whatever they think the truth is. So yeah.
And they're defending his intentions.
But I don't think any of this defense has to do with the N-word or not. I don't think that's really what the debate's about. To your second point, I hear what you're saying, but honestly, I come down on the other side of it, where it's like, I don't think if you're not black in America, I don't think you can fully understand what hearing that word means, casually or otherwise. So for me, I'm just like, I understand the argument of like we can't police language. I think for one word in one country
to one race of people,
my attitude is my attitude is like whatever. Like if that's what your community wants and that's how they feel about it, given the history and given the context and everything, like I'm okay being like sure.
I'm not insisting.
And Joe Rogan agrees with me.
Yeah, I know, but I don't actually agree with him in the sense that it is not morally equivalent. You can acknowledge that there's a context, that it's not the same thing.
I don't think if you don't have the lived experience, I know this sounds sort of like wishy-washy. I don't think if you don't have the lived experience of being black in America, I don't think you can understand what it feels like contextually or out of context to hear that word. I hear what you're saying philosophically, but I would never.
I'm trying to understand your point. I obviously can't understand what it's like to hear that word as a black person, given I'm not a black person.
Yes, and
but if we use the word kike, because we can say that, right? We're allowed to.
Kike's not the same.
I'm not saying it has the same moral weight or the
yeah.
historical context, but we can tell the difference for when somebody refers to. Yeah, back in the 1930s, they used to call Jews kikes all the time when Jews were immigrating. In that phrase, in the way that I just said that, whether a Jew said that or a non-Jew, I can evaluate that he's not using a racial slur, or he's not doing something wrong. I think the N-word has taken on this magical quality that I think is not progressive. It is not good. It is
magical. It's a magical word.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a good thing.
But it's not up to you to think it's a good thing or not. It's not really your judgment call.
Yeah, I think that's really weird. I think that's very bizarre.
It is weird. It is weird, and it is bizarre.
And it's bizarre, and I think it's anti-liberal and anti-progressive.
I think it is also, but I'm also like,
and it's not in the. I personally don't think that's in the best interest of people of color to say that a certain word that only white. First of all, we're white, but we're Jewish. Like, what does that mean? Like, do we identify with the segregation South in the United States because we match in melanin? It's a little ridiculous. I feel like as adults we can so easily tell the difference between when somebody's quoting a comedy bit.
It is, but
versus using it as a pejorative.
You said like you're a data guy and like you're very data driven. I think the amount of times you hear a word said contextually or out of context.
Well, when you put it in a compilation to destroy a guy.
So the compilation itself, I think, is so damaging. What NDRE accomplished was now everyone around the country has heard that word spoken millions and millions and millions of times. Like, what does that do for the word? What does that do for the community? Like, I think you're saying anyone who's not black shouldn't say that word in or out of context. I don't think that word should be broadcast in and out of context. Like, it can't be uttered.
Don't you think that's
it shouldn't be broadcast in and out of context.
Don't you think saying that's the solution, that it's the word itself that causes the damage and not the intention behind it? That's a little bit immature. Respectfully, it's an immature way of looking at language. The intention behind one's words is what gives it weight. We have
emotional responses to language. We don't have these objective, rational responses.
Understood, but it might take a certain amount of emotional maturity to decipher. Okay, well, in that context, I can totally get. And at one time, like, this is like syllabic phrases put together. There was a scandal 20 years ago. Sam Harris talks about it, where somebody used a word that sounded similar to that word, but it wasn't that word. And at the time, the NAACP acknowledged, like, that's ridiculous. Like, just because I don't even have to go into it, but because
don't say.
You don't want to get into this territory, but you see how silly that is?
Yeah, no,
I find that silly.
I see,
and I think that speaks to a certain societal maturity that we can all come to understand. There's a difference when somebody uses a word and puts the sounds together to form with the intention of racial slur and pejorative and to hurt a specific group and target a group, versus talking about it as adults.
I get it, and philosophically, I come down there too. But then a step further, I go, if this is what the community is telling us, then let's just listen. Why not just listen?
I don't buy that the community is telling that to us.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And I don't buy that. I think a lot of it is woke white activists telling us not to use it. There's a lot of African Americans on Twitter and black people saying, white people should not. When I say there's a lot, there's one guy I saw, so I liked it.
That's good.
So I'm checking my bias.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I saw somebody else, a UFC fighter, who said, I don't need white people telling me what I should be offended by. I think a lot of this is my gut. You trust your gut and I trust mine. A lot of this is woke, upper middle class, white liberal activists, super woke, saying this word must be banned from the language. This idea of banning language, banning books, banning ideas. You have to be able to talk about things openly. The intention and the moral position and the actions of the speaker matter. If I call you a douchebag casually, you know I'm just being your buddy. If a stranger came up to me and said you're a douchebag, it would feel different. Same word.
But I think there's power. I think there's objective power to words. I mean, I can't prove it.
There's objective power to words.
Yeah, I think words, no matter what the intention, if you hear a certain word over and over and over and over again, it has an effect on our brains and our bodies. I think
a nice psychological case, sure, could be made for that. I understand. You hear a word, it can trigger a reaction. But take it a step further and say if words are our best mechanism to express ideas, feelings, emotions, humor, jokes, communication, they are clumsy. And they don't always accurately reflect what we mean or whatever. So to espouse magical quality to one word for one race of people sounds so strange to me. And it doesn't.
Agree.
It doesn't.
We agree. It is strange.
And to say that the context, the subject speaking about it, doesn't matter, I think detracts from when the word is actually used in the wrong way. In the immoral way. I'm not condoning in the least the use of it in that sense, but the ability of putting the syllables together to mean something else or to refer to it. Like people were throwing up Joe Biden clips. Look who said it here. Yeah, he's quoting a transcript. So I don't fault Joe Biden for that either. Yeah, the standard applies both ways. He's reading a racist rant by somebody. Are we not mature enough as a society to tell the difference?
Which is
I would hope we are.
Of what Joe Rogan was doing.
Yes, I'm defending both cases. Yeah. They are not using it in the way they obviously put it together to cut out all the context.
So
where I disagree with Joe's apology is in context and out of context is wrong. He's agreeing sort of with the case you're making that it's just the utterance of the word is wrong enough. And I can understand that point, but I don't think that's a healthy way to look at this. And I don't think it's as representative as you might assume to the African-American community.
So I would also say if I mean, I'm saying you're right. It's a very sort of general broad statement. The community says we don't like it when anyone outside the community says, if I heard the opposite and they're like, yo, it's fine. We don't mind if it's in context. Then I would go like, okay, fine. Like I'm just trying to listen to what they're saying the same way I appreciate ABC listening to us about Jews, about Whoopi Goldberg, and being like, that may not mean so much to you, but I'm telling you that Holocaust statement was problematic.
Right. I get it. So there's a part of you that's like basically saying intellectually and philosophically and rationally, what I'm saying is sound and you agree with it. Yes. And the human side of you saying, but if I can accommodate just not using the word because it makes you feel a certain way, I can accommodate that.